summer. The signs of summer are all in the air. Max Kern is back in town. That's always a sign. From the coast. Jack Reynolds is back from Arizona. And Robbie Hassel has on a seersucker suit. And Jonathan Smith. So you know it's summertime. Cooper Trotter has our invocation pledge and Rotary moment.
All right. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for Rotary. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. May we show our gratitude for everything we have in our actions and helping other people. May we all today and every day just do a random act of kindness, and it would be contagious, and pass it on to other people. Let's say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Say
And do.
Is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Well, kind of repetitive because everybody always talks about ringing the bell, but it's just such a great time for me because my son comes home from California and the first thing he asks is, when are we ringing the bell? And then next thing I know, my daughter's saying, I want to come. So she leaves the grandchildren home, and it's just the three of us. 2 hours goes by so quick, and just seeing the people, and I mean, I had one young, probably 13-year-old, and he didn't have any money, and he passed and came back and put money in the pot. And, you know, it's just the act of giving, and so anyway, I always look forward to that because it is a family deal.
All right. Thank you, Cooper. Let's see. Howard, I see you got a clipboard and a mouthful of food.
Thanks, Roger. We have 43 members this morning, and we have one guest, Mark Whitehouse from Crescent.
Let's see. Announcements. Ralph, you want to give them a reminder?
Yes,
2 weeks from today?
Dinner again, Change the Guard, June 26th. We've had great participation. Steve has actually emailed the club again the link. So if you could, and if you haven't, please sign up, and it's going to be a great event.
It'll actually go out.
And the deadline, I'm sorry.
It'll go out in a bit. It's not working on my phone.
All right. And the deadline is next Friday. So
And it's a good deal.
it's a great.
It's unbelievable.
$20,
Yeah, $20 a head.
dinner at the Proximity. There's a fish. You have 3 choices in Ralph's setup there. There's the fish, there's a chicken, and there's a pork dish. First class deal.
Yeah.
I've said black tie optional, but that some people even were afraid of that. And that's a joke because I don't have wear what you want. I mean, be the last time you see me with long pants on.
It's more of a shirts and shoes
Right,
required.
shirts and shoes required for this crowd.
Are you going to wear a black golf shirt, Bobby? Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. All right, thank you, Ralph. It'll be a great event, honestly. Birthdays, anniversaries, go.
Here we go. We've got quite a few this week. For our birthdays, and I know Rob is on leave of absence, but today we have 2 birthdays. The first is Rob Midget. The other is Ashley Wigglesworth.
Today?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ashley. Happy birthday to you.
There she is.
my 29th birthday.
Congratulations.
She was just in college last year.
It seems like I was just in college now.
We have one additional birthday this week is on the 14th with Randy Elliott. Wedding anniversaries, we've got a couple this week. On the 10th was Dennis and Nancy Marcotte. On the 15th, we have 3 anniversaries. Is Stephen and Amber Brackin, 18 years. I have on the 15th also is Dale and Pam Farlow. And then on the 15th it is Walter and Lori. So congratulations.
All right. Any other announcements from the floor? Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
I'd
Mike.
just like to announce again about the installation banquet for Patrick Eakes and the assistant governors, 23rd of June at Sedgefield. We have the run of the clubhouse. We've got 5 of us so far that have signed up, and I'm hoping there'll be some more. But it will be a great evening, and we all know Patrick. We know how much he means to this district. He's going to have both of his children involved in this all year long, and both of them are. One of them is 8 and one of them is 11, I believe. So the family of Rotary is very important to Patrick, and I just hope that we'll be able to support him on the 23rd. 6 o'clock is cash bar, 7 o'clock at dinner at Sedgefield Country Club.
Thank you, Mike. It will. It'll be a great event. Great place to have it, too. Well, let's see. Happy dollars. Budget.
Bobby says we got 30 minutes. So well, what we ought to do is just go around the room. Everybody get their dollar out. Something good happened this week. Chris.
All right, so over the last couple of years, Green Valley Gators have been quietly infiltrating this club. We've got, Tom's got some kids over there. I do, Howard does, I think Mark Reynolds does. We kicked Ralph and his kids out of the Green Valley.
He left before you could ask.
But yeah, we were very fortunate on our first meet this Tuesday to hand the Friendly Frogs their first dual meet loss in 5 years, and first time we've knocked them off in 10 years.
Wow. All right.
Bittersweet. I accepted an offer on my house this week, so I'll be homeless in 7 weeks if I don't find something, or Matthew and I don't find something we agree on, which is tough with a pregnant lady.
Are you looking for something small?
No, we're not looking for something smaller. Yeah. So keep us in your prayers if we find something in the next 2 weeks that we can agree on.
We can agree on that.
She's also going to be homeless at
Keyword.
work.
What?
By the way. You're also going to be homeless from your work location.
I am. I have to move. We have to move out of my office and my house all in the same month. I'm going to be really confused.
It's close by.
Mike, can y'all not pay the rent anymore?
No.
That area is going to be, I think most of you know, that block above us on Eugene is going to be a hotel. And then the block we're in, which is beside the Acropolis, that whole building's going to be torn down for retail and office development. So we're going to be vacated, in the next
That's a
couple
great
months.
announcement. You should give me $1.
So that whole area, Roy Carroll can give you $1.
I was reminded as we were saying Pledge Allegiance, many of you know Saturday is Flag Day, June 14th. And as many of you also know, I'd like to give a happy dollar, Rotary not being a political organization, to our friend of Rotary, Howard Coble. I think this is the first meeting since the primary. I actually haven't been here, but I'd like to remind people that regardless of political stripes, Howard has served us well in this district. And for the first time in 32 years, he was not on the ballot, and he's not on the ballot this year. And I say that because the congressman procured that flag for us in the wake of September 11, 2001, when there was a real run on a demand for flags flown over the Capitol. He was able to get in line and get that flag for us, and we were reminded of that and what that was about and what we do when we pledge every week. So in honor of Flag Day and our congressman and his service, happy dollar.
All right, Bob. Somebody's going to have to talk a lot.
Well, at this table, other than being National Seersucker Day, yesterday was actually National Seersucker Day. Yeah, I thought on my way out to the car this morning, I thought, you know, we live just a delighted life in our community. And I thought, you know, I get to wear a seersucker suit to meet with, you know, 70 of the finest men and women in Greensboro. After this, I get to leave early and go to, you know, the oldest granddaughter's honor awards at her school. And I thought, you know, it's just almost a charmed life. And then I'll read the front page of the paper, and I see a family fleeing the violence in Iraq's Nineveh province. And I thought, you know, the work and the privilege of a Rotarian in this world has never been higher and more important than it is today. So, it's my $50.
Thank you.
Well, my daughter Jenny is graduating from Grimsley Sunday night at 8 o'clock. Have you ever heard of that? Graduation starting that late? My son Jake is at Bonnaroo, so we probably need to. And we have 2,500.
People, they can only arrest so many.
That's true. And we have 2,500 square feet of space for lease in our office if anyone is interested.
That's about, Marley can move her furniture in.
I do.
You will be off later.
So, I don't know, I think some people here know that in my spare time for a long time, I've been a musician, I play piano. And I'm excited that this weekend, one of my best friends that I've known since I was about 6 years old, she's getting married this weekend, and this will be, we keep joking with her, this is her first wedding, and she turned 39 yesterday, so she was very patient. We were very excited, and I am playing music for her wedding, which I am incredibly nervous about. But she asked me to do it back in maybe February. I said no because that's it's a big deal, and I said you should hire a professional musician to do your music. And so when I saw her at her shower here in Greensboro, and the wedding's in Connecticut, when I saw her shower in April, I said, "Did you hire someone to do your music?" She's like, "No." All right, well, then you get what you pay for. So it started off with one song. Bear with me here. She said, "Can you play Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses on the piano?" "Why, no, Molly, I don't have that as part of my repertoire. But you, I will learn it." So that was my first one, and then I added an Nora Jones piece. So those are going to be my preludes as people are coming in. And then I'm doing Pachelbel Canon in D as the bridal party processes. And then her aunt plays bagpipes, and we're going to do a piece called Highland Cathedral for the bridal processions. So I've been frantically practicing for weeks, and I'm really excited to honor my friend, and she has assured me that a few mistakes along the way are going to be okay. So.
You have a reception. You have that picture you take.
No, she did ask me if I could noodle while the reading was going on.
I was thinking maybe Freebird.
Oh, that'd be awesome, yeah. It's in Connecticut. I don't know what they would think of that.
Actually, the good news is that bagpipes make anything
else
sound good.
It's not one of the least.
Be sure to play after the bagpipes. Oh my God.
What make this diamond?
This is like I would say 50% happy, 50% sad wine. Many of you got to know Merritt, our long-term exchange student. Tomorrow morning we're going to put on a plane. It's going to be, so the year is over. And she's going to go tour the West Coast with a Rotary group for a couple of weeks. So the real heavy, I would say the heavy part is we hosted multiple exchange students. And I would say she's one of the best, if not the best student we ever had. She's a great girl, enjoyed everything, was ready for anything, never homesick, never problems, enjoyed everything. So she was really a joy to have. And the sad thing is that we're going to miss her.
Well, it's kind of a bittersweet day for us today, too. My youngest daughter, Olivia, will be graduating from elementary school. Now I have 2 middle school girls. Please pray.
Mike Conrad, who'd you borrow $1 from?
Did
Ben give you that
Australian dollar? No, my happy dollar, and I think Jonathan will agree, we're really happy that we're having the changing of the guard on the night of our anniversary. And Jonathan and I, we were married on the same day back in 1971. So it's a very economical evening for us.
At the same time of day. That's what everyone says.
I'm blessed to still have both my parents. My mom's 88, my dad's 90. He'll be 91 here in 2 weeks. But I talk to him all the time, go see him anyway. I was talking to Mom the other day, and she said, you know, your dad's really down on himself. I said, well, what's wrong? She said, you know, he plays golf 2 or 3 days a week and goes to the Y the other days. But he just said he just can't play golf like he used to. He's just not on his game. And, you know, of course, he's 90 years old. Anyway, but I talked to her this week. She said he was really up. Said he'd shot an 86. But he beat his age by 5 strokes.
And how many hole-in-ones?
He's had, I think, 8 or 9 hole-in-ones in his lifetime. But if you played as much as he has, the law of averages.
Still have to hit that wee little ball in that wee little hole.
Hey, Chip. Oh, I got one more. I had a surprise last night. Carrie said, well, I've got to go to Asheville and do some stuff up there. And immediately thereafter, Wilder announced that my nephew was coming in from Raleigh, the one that I took to the beach that almost got arrested. So I'm back in the family, which means his mother says it's okay for him to come to town. But he's never come to Greensboro on his own before. Why do you reckon it is? With Kerry going out of town, he's decided today's the day. I think it's the day. I'm not sure. Either that or party at my house about the
Camp Chip. All right. Always a party at your house.
Bonnie.
I got a couple here. I'm heading down to Pinehurst Ranch to volunteer at the U.S. Open. I was down there yesterday. It's a great event, so if anyone's going down there, I encourage you to go down there. It worked out great because my last day at McGladrey was May 30th. I accepted an offer with another firm and worked out, so I've got 3 weeks off and heading to Hilton Head tomorrow. So get in some golf before I start the new job.
Good for you.
Well, Grandpappy always said, a person who tells you they'll meet you halfway is usually a poor judge of distance.
Point well taken. Okay, we've got a couple of great things. We've got a new member talk, but before we do that, Mike Conrad's going to enlighten us on his recent trip to Australia for the Rotary International Convention.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
I think this is what you said, the 9th time you've been? 8th or 9th?
It's my 8th convention, but, and this is very impromptu, as Bobby asked me this morning, but I will just say that, number one, my body clock is just totally out of whack. As to me, it's like 9:30 on Friday. So you really get messed up whenever you do international travel, but I would certainly advise you, if you ever get a chance to go to Australia and it's on your bucket list, I would say go there. If I didn't live in the United States, I would love to live in Australia. The people are so friendly, warm, the countryside is just absolutely beautiful. And to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what we did, we flew into Brisbane, which is the 2nd largest city, and got there. We had to open up the airport. We couldn't get in until 5 a.m. and after flying all night. And so rather than going to bed, we did tours and just kind of crashed at early evening. So that really got us acclimated to their time. Stayed in Brisbane a couple of days. The largest friendly city I've ever been in. If you go down the street, people greet you, and so it was just very special. We flew to Cairns, which is where the Great Barrier Reef is, did the tour of the Great Barrier Reef and the rainforest. And I hate to say this, but we did have, we went to this, one of the places where the Aboriginal people do these dances and stuff. I did get volunteered to come up and do a dance with them. My wife has that video, which I've got to find and burn. But I will say, after the dance, one of the tribes people said, which tribe do you belong to? So it was kind of a funny thing that we enjoyed there. But after Cairns, we came back to Brisbane, rented a car, and actually drove 1,000 kilometers towards Sydney. And we had done, many of you remember, we did a group study exchange with 9640, a district along the Gold Coast, back the year I was district governor. And then we did a friendship exchange with that same district. So we had made friends with these people. We stayed in 3 families' homes on our way down to Sydney. One of them owns a winery, which you would love. He's actually Italian descent, but their winery is one of the premier wineries in all of Australia. But we got the feel of the life of the people. My first chance to experience kangaroo at a cookout, and I won't recommend it to you. So it's very tough. It's very poor. It's just not. It's like eating leather or something.
It just wasn't cooked right.
I was told it has to be either rare or medium rare to be able to take it, but it wasn't. But anyway, we got to Sydney for the international convention. A little bit about it. Of course, Sydney itself is so wonderful with the bridge and the Opera House. Rotarians filled the Opera House one night for the Sydney Symphony Orchestra. What a performance. What a venue. We were there early. They changed the lights on the Opera House, and it's just something beautiful to behold. But at the convention, there were 18,000 of us at the Olympic Park. If you ever get a chance to go to a Rotary International Convention, it's something over the top. The speakers are outstanding. We got a report on polio. To kind of give you a little bit of an update, as you know, we still have the 3 countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. The good news in Nigeria, they've only had 2 cases so far this year. Afghanistan has only had, I think, about 3 cases. So those 2 countries are on track to be polio-free. The problem is in Pakistan. And as we all know, there's a lot of unrest going on in Pakistan. There's a lot of even border crossings, and polio is just a border crossing away. And there's actually Rotary, as well as the World Health Organization, are working to make sure that with border crossings that the kids are taken care of whenever they make that crossing. But I would just say we did our traveling with Larry and Dolores Lassiter. Larry will be governor-elect as of July 1. I let Larry do the driving. It was all on the wrong side of the road for me, and he did a beautiful job. But I would just say, Australia, if it's on your bucket list, do it, and you won't regret it one iota. It's just a great place to go. So that's it. If there's any question, and Vegemite, don't go for it.
Oh, no.
It's terrible.
Will you do a round of waltzing Matilda for us?
Well, we did a little bit of that too. And I went to 2 Rotary clubs. Both of them very small in these small towns. One was about 25 members, one was about 40 members. And at one of them on my way there, the person said, "Well, you're going to be our speaker today." I said, well, thank you for the heads up. But it worked out well to kind of give them a flavor for, and I got to brag on our club, and our club compared to what they're doing there is phenomenal. And I failed to say, at one of the plenary sessions on the foundation, that our district 7690, was highlighted, and it was the only district that was highlighted during that foundation presentation for a vocational training team that was done last year as part of Mercyship. So we were blown away. Had no reason to believe that 7690 would get any kind of recognition, but here they show pictures of Rotarians from our district at this plenary session. So it was truly a special moment. So.
Dorothy asked.
I'm sorry,
who
Who
was
was the
speaking.
speaker, the main speaker for the event?
There's actually a lot of different speakers that,
Okay.
you know, and the entertainment, of course, Ron Burton is the international president, Gary Wan coming on, they do their keynote speeches. They do the 10 Tenors. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're iconic in Australia. They perform for us, just incredible groups, and so everything is really moves along so rapidly. And if you go to something like this, there's just not a double. You want to get there, and you want to get there early so you can get a good seat, you know, in the place. But it's a great experience.
Interesting. What was Marcus Crotts there? Does he
You know, he
still
didn't go this year.
Really?
And lots of times he's the first person to register for the international convention. He's done it many, many years.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got a son that's not in good health, so he didn't go this year.
Marcus is from over in Winston-Salem, but yeah, his registration number for this international conference is 1.
One.
He's done it like 20
Absolutely.
times.
1 out of 18 to 20,000 people.
He's always the first person to register. Well, one of my favorite meetings is always the new member talk. And this one is especially good because Ben Brackin and I grew up together. And I woke up this morning thinking, this is going to be hard for Bennett because the first part of the 4-way test is it the truth? I grew up with Bennett, and only Tommy and I will know whether some of this stuff is true.
Well, you said as long as I covered one of those.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 is not bad. Okay. All right, Ben, so I'll give you the floor. Tell us what you want.
Wow, what a tough lead in there. Yeah. Yeah, I thought about this last night with Tommy and Bobby here. It does sort of limit me a little bit as far as what I can get by with. But now we had a, that's a great start, so I'll focus on our neighborhood a little bit. I'm probably not the most organized person in the world, and Bobby and Tommy would probably agree to that. But I found myself going back and forth between what I wanted to maybe come across with this morning and talk about, and I guess what kept coming back and definitely tied into my childhood is defining moments. There were quite a few defining moments in my life, and a lot of them started very young. And our neighborhood was a true blessing to be brought up in. I think about it with my kids a lot of times. I mean, they had a nice neighborhood and had a good time, but it was really unusual. It was, I think Bobby called it the country club out there. I know Bobby's told you, but we grew up out off of Friendly Road out when it was country, out behind Friends Home West, and it was amazing for us. You know, it was not unusual for us to come home from school and grab our sleeping bag, grab a bag of food, and take off on our mini bikes and take off over toward Longview Golf Course, back toward Max Ballinger's property back then, and just stay gone for 2 or 3 days, show up Sunday night sometimes. And our parents didn't worry about us. How unusual is that? So that is something that I'll always remember. Tommy, I got to tell a couple of stories on Tommy and Bobby here right out the gate, but Tommy, I guess it's rough being my friend. I'll never forget down at Coble's pasture at the creek when we had a flash flood. We seemed to have a lot of those in those days, but the creek there that runs into Horse Peak Creek was like logs that big, just flying down the creek. It was amazing. And Tommy and I were, I guess, about 9 or 10, weren't we, Tommy? And we were trying to get enough nerve up to jump over this creek, which was not a good idea to start with. But, and I'll never forget, we were kind of beside each other, trying to get ready, and Tommy jumped, and I thought, I'm going with him. So I jumped right behind him. Well, unfortunately, he stopped right when I jumped, and he went straight in. Oh, no. Wow, that was a defining moment, because I was right behind him, so it was almost like I pushed him in. Obviously not intentionally, but he was gone for at least, seemed like 10 minutes, but I'm sure it was probably 30 seconds. But he comes up about 10, 20 feet down, you know, logs that big flying down the river, grasping for air, and I ran up there and grabbed him. I was really glad to see him. But, you know, that was definitely a defining moment in my young life. I guess another kind of a funny moment. I guess it wasn't funny for Bobby, but we were at my grandparents' one day. I think it's the only time I ever beat Bobby running. I'm glad I don't have to try that anymore. But we were racing toward my dad's old, what was that, Buick, yeah, I guess, and solid steel, chrome, that thick type car. I remember those days back in the, when was that, Bobby? Back in the early 70s, I guess. And Bobby tripped and fell and hit his head right on the metal part where you go into the car. It's like somebody punched a watermelon and split his forehead all the way up. I knew he was going to be a smart guy because I saw his brains hit that. I don't know why I thought about that, but that was just one of those things as a kid you never forget. But we took him to the emergency room and he healed up fine. But back on track a little bit, I guess I sort of jumped in the middle there. The priorities in my life, which are important to me, my best friend is Jesus. So I'm a Christian, I'm proud of it. That's number one. My wife runs a close second, and my children are third, and my friends, and that's one thing I've been blessed with all my life, is some great friends. They're fourth. Just a quick on me, I, like I said, grew up here, went to Western Guilford, and went to Appalachian, and like Conrad and I got something in common there. Went through school there, and then I've been in the flooring industry for most of my life in sales, outside sales, and I guess I can, getting into a little bit of my family, I guess I can thank my grandparents and my dad for that. My family wasn't really you would say it, there was nothing shy about, especially my dad. He was quite outspoken and sort of like the father, I guess, to a lot of people. I know Tommy's dad passed away when he was just a couple years old, and I guess that kind of led to Tommy and I growing up kind of like brothers, next door neighbors. And he, it was not unusual on a Friday, for everybody to be hanging around our house, or Saturday morning or something. And my dad would say, y'all all hop in, and he'd throw a shotgun in there, somebody catch that. He'd throw a bucket in there, we were going to go catch something or shoot something, and we'd head up to the terminals up here, the oil terminals off 421. He worked for Sinclair, then it was BP, then it was FEMA. He was a southeast manager for the oil terminals, and all the woods back through there. We'd go out. I know Bobby told the story one time about the copperheads, a bucket full of copperheads that brought him. You really never knew what was coming home when you went out with us. It was kind of like, the Beverly Hillbilly experience / hunting guide, so a lot of fun. He, like I said, he was a father to a lot of people, great dad. And I guess my roots go back to, a lot of that came from his dad, who was, well, let me back up a second. There are obviously a lot of opposites in my family. My mom and dad, complete opposites. But even going back a little further, my grandfather was, he went to Auburn, and he was, before it was called Auburn, back in the 20s, still got those old angels, and so very educated man for his day. But I was thinking last night about some of the interesting stories, which there are a lot that I can't tell, obviously. But a couple of things my granddad talked to me about when I was young, and one, I guess, helped build a little character in me, or taught me not to be a lazy person. And my wife, my sister, I was telling her last night I was going to be speaking, and she said, "You're surely you're not going to tell that story." Well, my wife told me I should. So anyway, just to give you an idea of some of the names and some of the heritage I come from. Dothan, Alabama, LA as they call it, Lower Alabama. That's where all my people are from on my dad's side. And we had names like Tharmy and Berlin. And my grandfather was Rufus Foy, so a lot of southern roots, you might say there. But my granddad told a story that always stuck in my mind because it was hilarious. They lived on, back then, in Lower Alabama, the southern part of the state. There was a lot of swamps and a lot of low areas, and they built their houses up on stilts, kind of like the beach, when you were younger and went to the beach and you saw the pines. But they were still an hour or so from Panama City, but they built them up high. And it was not unusual for a lot of animals, especially, if it was rough weather, something to get up under your house. Sounds like a Jeff Foxworthy joke here or something. But, turkeys, dogs, everything. We just kind of go to there for shelter. And my grandfather, he was the oldest, and I think Tharmy was probably about 8 or 9, or maybe younger than that, I don't know. But a bunch of them shared the same bedroom, obviously. And he got up in the middle of the night, needed to go to the bathroom, and instead of going out to the outhouse, which my grandfather was pretty upset with him, said he was a lazy, sorry, blankety blank, you know, he laid down on the floor, and there's a little knothole there, and he decides he's going to do it the easy way. Well, unfortunately, there was a turkey under the house. Roosting, so you can picture the rest of that story. It took care of a lot of his laziness at that point. And hearing that story when you're a little kid, it definitely made an impression on me. So, you know, kind of a crazy story. But anyway, maybe I should have told that one. Maybe my sister was right. But you know, like I said, blessed with a great family. My mother was just a saint. She was, I wrote down some things, you know, loving, listening, caring, patient Christian woman. Unfortunately, we lost her in '92. She had breast cancer, and she was probably as wild of a rounder as my dad was. The only one that could actually put him in his place pretty quick. But yeah, growing up with a serious Methodist Christian woman on one side trying to drag me to church every Sunday, and then having a dad on the other side taking me hunting, fishing, and telling the wildest jokes you've ever heard. Like I told Bobby, I said, there's not a whole lot I'm going to be able to talk about here today as far as his jokes go, but it was an interesting mix, you know. I felt like I grew up kind of split down the middle, but it was a good split, and I'm blessed to have had both of them. Like I say, there's a couple of stories I guess I'll tell on my dad. One, and I had to reach pretty far down to find a joke that would work. But this one always kind of reminded me of myself a little bit, and he always liked to tell it, and I modified it a little bit. He always liked to tell a joke about the guy that went in the hardware store looking for a piece of, for a link of stovepipe. I don't know if you got to kind of go back, but the stovepipe, like wood stove, very inexpensive, you know, maybe a penny and a half in those days a foot. And he said, I'd like a half a link of stovepipe. And the guy said, I beg your pardon? He said, I'd like a half a link of stovepipe. He said, okay. So he goes back in the back, he's got a device, he's sawing it in half, and the regional manager walks back and said, what in the heck are you doing? He said, oh, some silly son of a gun wants a half a link of stovepipe. And he looks over his shoulder, and the guy had followed him back there that wanted the stovepipe. And he said, oh, and this nice gentleman here, he'd like the other half. so his boss, after that was all done, said, I like the way you handle that. That's thinking on your feet. He said, that's the kind of guy I need working for me in a new, store we're opening. And he said, really? Okay, great. He said, yes, up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He said, Green Bay, Wisconsin? He said, there's nothing but illicit women and football players come from Green Bay, Wisconsin. He said, I beg your pardon? He said, my wife's from Green Bay, Wisconsin. He said, oh, really? He said, what position did she play? So I guess that would sum up my dad a little bit in a joke that I can tell at Rotary. And I can thank him and God for giving me the gift of gab. As you can see, I definitely got that. And I'm thankful to that. I was thinking about some other things. He loved poetry. My dad, he just went 2 years to school at NC State and then went off to World War II, but he loved poetry. He had all these off-the-wall poems and poems with unknown authors, and he'd always be sitting around the fire telling a story or telling a poem, and I just kind of go through those two to get the right one that would work. But the one, I guess it's funny how certain things just stick in your head, but this kind of would kind of sum him up in some ways, and I'll let you take it away, whichever way you want. But it was a poem by, 'Twas one night in late October, and I was far from sober, carrying my pack along in manly pride, when my feet began to stutter, and I fell into a gutter, and a pig came up and lay down by my side. 'Twas a lady passing by, was heard to say, you can tell a man who boozes by the company he chooses. And the pig got up and slowly walked away. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to skip through some more of this. I just wanted to kind of, as far as our neighborhood goes, I know I'm jumping all over the grid here, but a typical day coming home from school, I just had to kind of try to at least paint a picture. Bobby knows we live this, and I guess it's hard to explain unless you live there, but I just put here long summer days, included typically cutting your grass, doing your chores. In my case, my dad raised ducks and parrots from all over the world, so we had a zoo in our backyard, so I always got to feed birds for several hours. Riding mini-back, swimming, and camping out, as I mentioned, long hours. Spending spending evenings down at Danny's dugout. Dan Cook and Ham had a carport, and we all hung down there and played ping pong till all hours and swam in the pool. Mary Cook and Ham, who just passed away here recently, I think Bobby had mentioned that. She sort of taught 3 generations to swim, so it was an incredible place to grow up. And of course, if we were really lucky, the girls would show up and we'd play spin the bottle.
Really lucky.
Really lucky. That wasn't always
like
the
that
case.
never happened.
Never. Bobby was the real craftsman in the neighborhood, and he built the most incredible treehouse, and Tommy helped him. And of course, that was way before my pre-saved era, and Tommy and I decided to build a, what was it, 15, Tommy? We decided to build it was more like a bar than a treehouse. We built a little cabin out of Ballinger's land, lumber, and I think we were almost 16. I've got to throw this story in. Tommy's rolling his eyes at me. But I talked my sister into buying, was it 2 cases of Old Milwaukee beer? Yeah, 2 cases of Old Milwaukee beer. And Bobby and Greg came by and checked on us earlier. A friend of ours, we called him Big Dad. That's what kind of made it funny. They came by and checked on us early, and kind of like, man, I hope these guys don't screw something up here, you know. But later that night, after we drank, I think, a whole case and maybe one other 6-pack.
It wasn't just us 2.
It was about 8 of us. But we kind of got loud. We're miles back in the woods. I mean, you got to understand this. And my uncle happened to be over at my dad's house, miles up the road, and they heard us. I think it was Tommy, man, making most of the noise. But they came down and the camp out ended. There was a police lineup. They busted through the bushes, and everybody said, "Somebody's coming." I said, "Oh, it's just Big Dad and Bobby." It was Big Dad and Bobby, my Uncle Bobby. And it was a rude awakening. I think I made it about 100 yards with a styrofoam cooler before I tripped over a root and hit the ground. Milwaukee's everywhere. Floodlights on us, it was over. But the cool thing about my dad, never told one of the guys' parents about it. You know, they all got out scot-free, including Tommy. But my cousin and I did, and we wound up working in my grandfather's garden the next 4 or 5 weeks, really hard. That was a tough payback. But I always admired my dad for that. You know, he sort of dealt with things one-on-one with people, and as he did with all of us in the neighborhood. Anyway, I think that's about everything I wanted to say about the neighborhood. You know, a lot of things happened after that to me. We'll get back to defining moments. I totaled my dad's car 10 days after I got my license out off 220 there. If anybody knows where the Richardson Foundation area across from Burr Mill, my mom worked for Burlington Industries all her life, and worked for Art Weiner over there. She was executive secretary, and she was a smart cookie. But anyway, I decided to go a little. I'd been down this road one time, so I had it down pat. I knew this road like the back of my hand. And we went down a little windy road there, across from Burr Mill, and hit a tree, and could have been a statistic real quick, but it wasn't meant to be. Thankfully, we all walked. Well, we didn't walk away from it. Thankfully, we're all okay today. But that was on my stupidest things list. That was at the top of that. Pushing Tommy in the creek, that was definitely number 2. But going through all these things, it's wild how your life. You think about coincidences, and you think about defining moments, and I used to think, wow, my life is full of coincidences. This is so ironic. That is really unusual, you know. Well, if there's one thing I've learned in life, there are no coincidences. There are appointments. And sometimes we show up for them, sometimes we don't. I spent about 40-some years not showing up for when things were being put on my heart. You know, I was busy selling, traveling all over. Cost me a lot of things, spending a lot too much time working and having fun, and maybe not focusing on the things that the Lord wanted me to really focus on. And thank goodness a good friend of mine, Alan Wilson, helped me figure all that out back in 2012, and been a heck of a lot easier since then, and a lot more fun. So I guess being in Rotary, I see a real opportunity for me to help people, and that's really what I want to do, and be a real impact on the things that are a lot more important. And so I've done a few things here about the rest of my life. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father and grandfather. Grandfather part's easy. I got that down pat. I'm having a blast with that. Take more time to listen, be a better friend, and find more ways to help others. And I guess that's pretty much it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
That was great. Brought back a lot of memories.
It was a lot.
It was all true.
Most of it.
Did you buy a ticket today?
You know what? I didn't.
You did? Well, then you can do
I was
the
too
draw.
worried about giving this.
Read the last three. Don't forget the cart fund buckets on your table.
862.
862. 862. Yeah. Pull another one.
Yeah, no,
715-861.
861.
861 anymore. That was
That's the way.
Are these this week's tickets?
Rotary wins.
No, I didn't. Have a great day.